Is it too late to become a commercial pilot? I get asked this question on a day-to-day. Will I earn enough money? Will airlines still hire me? And is the lifestyle shift really worth it? In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the pros and cons of becoming a commercial pilot in your 30s, your 40s, and even if you're in your 50s. And what we'll do first is explain the cons and what the negatives of becoming a pilot could be. Jumping into the cons, the first and major bottleneck for most people is the cost of pilot training. Now, the cost of pilot training can be anywhere between 50 to 100k, depending on what pathway that you take. Generally, there's two routes that you can take, which is the integrated and the modular route. I've made a whole video breaking down the entire step-by-step process of becoming a pilot, which I'll link right now so that you can click onto it and have a look if you are interested in becoming a pilot. I would say the integrated route will definitely get you there quicker and is more recommended for the guys that are starting later in life. But that doesn't discount the fact that it is a lot more expensive too, which is the downside of becoming a pilot and a clear negative towards getting into the industry, which most people get stumped at. Now, another thing that I've noticed from a lot of older guys that are starting in the industry is the intense learning curve. For some guys, it's been years since they've been in an education environment. You may have been in the working world for about 20 years. And in terms of your educational side of things, the education system is up until the age of 18. So potentially, you might have been working the larger proportion of your conscious life than you've been studying, and to go into a studying environment can be quite challenging for some people. Now, that being said, with the clients that I have, a lot of them are a little bit older, so we've developed really optimal ways of studying for the guys that are in that older generation, because I know that it can be a challenge, but to the same degree, it doesn't stop you from learning. We are always able to learn. Our brains are very, very powerful things, and I'm a very big advocate for the fact that no matter where you are, what age you are, what background you've come from, you are definitely able to pass any theory exams if you put your mind to them, and any practical check rides or skills tests that you might have to face. And I actually also think the more life experience that you have, the more of a positive position that you're in regards to practical tests, skills tests, because you will have a better grip on, one, your emotion, and two, how to tackle these challenging problems. Now, another negative to starting later is the seniority aspect. Generally, the short haul kind of airline world doesn't work off a seniority basis because the inflow and the outflow of pilots is quite rapid. But the legacy carriers, for example, British Airways, for example, United Airlines, will have a seniority structure. If you obviously joined a major carrier later in life, it can make it really difficult in terms of the seniority aspect of things, because they may have started their aviation career at 23 years old and stayed at that airline till now, where they're at 40, 45 years old. And so they've got the seniority in that regard. Whilst you, in your position where you're starting at 40 years old, you will not have the same amount of years to kind of compound that seniority. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's too late. It's like regretting to invest in the S&P 500 when you were 10 years old. Sometimes your life leads you to a different position. Ultimately, it's a very small reason not to go for these major airlines, because everybody's personality is different. Everybody comes from a different background and everybody has different desires. So if your desire is to work for one of the major carriers, and that's what you've always wanted to do since you were a young age, but you've never had a chance to do it, and you're in your 40s and you're thinking, oh, I really want to go still for British Airways or Emirates, I mean, who's to stop you? Seniority is only a small aspect of it. In reality, you're going to be living out your childhood dream for the next kind of 25 years until you retire. Who's really missing out if you don't decide to take that step? It's going to be you ultimately. With that in mind, seniority is a negative in terms of if you're starting later. I would not make your entire decision-making basis off of that particular factor. It's such a taboo kind of misconception that the airline hiring process is harder for older guys. I've met so many captains who have started in their late 30s and late 40s who were originally engineers or in technology companies or even doing other things entirely which have no relation to any kind of aviation role. And then they decided, well, I've always wanted to be a pilot, so I'm going to go and do it. So a massive misconception, and I'd say this is one of the negatives of starting later, is that you adopt this misconception that you're less employable if you start later. Your life skills, your mannerisms, the way that you handle yourself will be invaluable in a emergency situation, which some guys who started very young, they haven't had time to develop those particular skills and those particular mindsets. I started when I first left school, so I was one of the guys that started super young. But as I get older, I realize more and more, the more mature you are and the more life experience that you have behind you, the more of an advantage you are in becoming a pilot. And that's why I genuinely believe there's no cutoff in terms of the hiring process. I know for a full fact that other pilots and recruiters will see it in the same way, that the more life experience you have, the better. Now we can transition into the pros and the advantages of becoming a pilot now, why you should become a pilot right now if you are considering doing it and you're kind of in a position where you can do it. First and foremost, I'm going to counteract my initial point about the finances, because in reality, if you are in a position where you're later in life, the financial aspect of things is going to actually be more in favor of you, because the guys that have started fresh from school, and I get these DMs every single day mentioning funding being a massive issue for them. The guys that have a little bit more leverage with the funding are the guys that are a little bit older. So if you're in a position where you're older and you have something saved, you're in a great position. And not only that, it's easier for you guys to get loans out as well. Whereas some of the younger guys, it's impossible to get loans out. And not only that, their parents are not on board with it. The people around them might not necessarily be supportive of it. In your particular situation, you've got no friction with regards to anyone around you. You are in a position where you can make your own decisions. But that is obviously a massive aspect for younger guys. They have their parents to kind of please, they have their schools pushing them towards university, they have a lot of kind of pressure in that regard, which you don't have when you're a little bit older and a little bit wiser and able to make your own decisions. Another pro that I mentioned a little bit earlier was the life experience. Now that, I can't stress how important and how valuable that is, and that is the angle that you can enter this industry through. You have that life experience, you have that perspective that guys like me who'd started fresh from school will not have, which is super valuable and something that you need to really pounce upon when it comes to the assessment processes, when it comes to choosing a flight school, when it comes to all of these things. Those are things that you can definitely apply to make your career a lot easier, as well as make yourself a lot more employable to airlines. Now, another advantage of becoming a pilot is the career opportunity. I know a lot of guys think, well, I'm starting late, so I'm not going to have that much options and I'm not that much time in order to finish the training and get into the field and then carry on and do other things within the field. I'm just about going to make it to being an airline captain potentially. But actually, in reality, the aviation industry has so many avenues of development that people just don't tap into and don't even realize. When you're thinking about the career prospects in other jobs, it's very difficult. In order to kind of excel in certain areas, you need to get a master's, and then from there you need to get a PhD, and those things take way more time. Whereas within the aviation industry, it is solely and purely, one, experience based, and two, skills based. If you have the relevant skills for a particular role and you can demonstrate that, then there's absolutely nothing stopping you from pursuing a particular role, whether it's in management, whether it's in training. The only thing that might stop you is experience. But how are you going to get experience? By flying and continuing within the field. And once you become a captain within an airline, which generally within the short haul airlines takes about 6 to 7 years from the start date of your first officer kind of contract. But once you've gained that position as a captain, the world is pretty much yours to choose from. You can go into training, you can go into management, do pretty much whatever you feel like doing, as long as you've got the skills and necessary experience. So despite people thinking, oh, I've only got a few years left of the industry and I'm starting so late, actually, even if you start in your 50s, and let's say worst case scenario, it takes you 8 years to become a captain. You're 58, you've still got 7 more years to go into any avenue of the career that you'd like to go into. Now, There's another loophole to this, and there's another way that you can extend your longevity within the industry, and that's if you go into type rating instructing. So if you're worried that I'm only going to be able to work till I'm 65, actually you're wrong. Because once you become a captain, you get the type rating instructor license and rating on your license, then you're full and free to basically pursue type rating instructing for the rest of your life, should you choose to do so. Which means you'll never be out of a job. And if you choose to retire, you can also retire and be satisfied with those kind of 15 or 20 years that you actually did being able to live out one of your childhood dreams. Now, another thing that people really have a misconception of is the work-life balance. And that is something that I cannot stress is so great from a pilot's perspective. I mean, right now it's the middle of winter. The maximum amount of hours I've done is about 60 hours, and that's since November. So if I was to compare that to a 9 to 5, I mean, where you're doing 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. every single day, it's just completely disproportionate. So the amount that I work in comparison to someone else that's earning a similar pay bracket to myself is massively different. And the amount I think about work whilst I'm on my time off is massively different too. I'm here being able to talk to you guys and plea to you that it's such a great decision to become a pilot, without in the back of my mind thinking, oh, I should be doing this project, or I should be kind of catching up on some work that I had to do earlier. I don't have to think like that, because my work was done when I handed the keys back for the aeroplane. But ultimately, if I was to summarize whether or not it's a good idea in your 40s, 30s, 50s to become a pilot, I would 1,000,000% advocate that you do not let anything stop you from getting there. I know that it can be tough from a position where you've built and established your entire life, but if it's something that you've always wanted to do and you just can't get it out of your head that that's something that I really will regret if I never try and do it, I am telling you right now, it is possible for you to do that. It is possible for you to become an airline pilot. If you want to speed up that process and streamline it, make it a million times easier for yourself, shoot me a DM. My Instagram will be in the description, and I will be happy to work with you on pursuing that dream of yours. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you could do me a massive favor, just like the video, subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it, and that way we can reach as many people as possible who have always dreamt of becoming pilots but not potentially gone into it. Just think about it as, if you leave a like on this video, you might be helping someone. So please just do me a massive favor and do that for me. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.